As the winter sunset began to fade early in Boston, Caroline Smith was baking cookies with her son Noah in their kitchen. Caroline smiled as she watched Noah's small hands shaping the dough. The 8-year-old boy had drawn his mouth into a serious line, concentrating on making each cookie into a perfect circle. "Mom, is this good?" Noah asked with a slightly anxious expression. His blue eyes always held a hint of worry. Caroline gently pulled her son close. "It's perfect, Noah. You're so talented." The ringing telephone from the living room interrupted their peaceful moment. She could hear her husband Jason answering. "She's in the kitchen. I'll get her." Caroline stroked her son's hair gently before heading to the living room. When she took the phone, she noticed the concern in Jason's eyes. "It's my mother," he whispered. Caroline took a deep breath and picked up the receiver. "Hello, Mom." "Caroline, I finally reached you." Elizabeth's voice carried its usual sternness. "Please tell me what time you'll arrive at the hotel tomorrow. The schedule is packed with preparations for Jennifer's wedding. We should arrive by 3 in the afternoon, Mom. As long as the flight isn't delayed. Delays are simply unacceptable. You must plan properly." Elizabeth paused briefly, then changed her tone. "Is Noah behaving himself? I've had a new suit made for him. I don't want to be embarrassed at the wedding." Caroline clenched her jaw. "Noah is fine, Mom. Don't worry about him." "How is his problem? Is he still struggling to speak in public?" "Noah has anxiety, that's all."
Can you imagine making $10,000 a month just from YouTube, all from home? That's exactly what I did with Reddit stories. No face, no voice. Check the link in the description if you're curious.
"It's not an illness." Caroline's voice had an unusual edge to it. "Don't speak to me that way, Caroline," Elizabeth sighed. "You always overreact. I'm just concerned. I don't want Jennifer's special day to be ruined." Caroline gripped the receiver tightly. Her mother had always favored her sister Jennifer. Jennifer was the miracle child born in her parents' later years. Beautiful, sociable, and living the life her parents had expected. Her fiancé, Michael Johnson, was the son of a wealthy real estate developer, an ideal son-in-law for Elizabeth and Walter. "Everything will be fine, Mom. We'll be properly prepared." After hanging up, Caroline sat down on the sofa. Jason sat beside her and took her hand. "Are you okay?" Caroline looked at her husband. Though successful as a lawyer, she always felt like a 12-year-old girl in front of her mother. "Yes, I'm fine. Just Mom being Mom," she gave a wry smile. Always obsessed with the perfect family image. Noah's voice called from the kitchen. "Mom, the cookies are done." Caroline and Jason exchanged smiles. They silently promised each other to enjoy this peaceful evening before the tense family time that would begin tomorrow. The next day, Caroline's family arrived at Boston's luxury Ritz-Carlton Hotel. The lobby was bustling with wedding guests. Caroline. Turning around, she saw her sister Jennifer rushing toward her. Dressed in a white sundress, she radiated a bride's glow. "Jenny." Caroline embraced her sister. Despite complicated feelings, her love for her sister was genuine. "Noah." Jennifer spotted her nephew and crouched down to his eye level. "Tomorrow is Auntie's special day. I hope you're looking forward to it." Noah nodded timidly. He adored Jennifer. She was one of the few adults who always treated him kindly. "Mom and Dad are in the hotel bar," Jennifer informed Caroline. "Go see them right away. Mom especially is looking forward to seeing you." Caroline nodded, feeling anxious. On the morning of the wedding, sunlight streaming through the hotel window woke Caroline. Jason was still quietly breathing beside her. She slipped out of bed and checked Noah's room. Her son was already awake, drawing something by the window. "Good morning, Noah." Noah turned and gave his mother a small smile. "Good morning, Mom. What are you drawing?" Caroline sat down next to her son. "A present for Aunt Jenny," Noah proudly showed his picture. It depicted the wedding scene in a childlike style. "It's beautiful," Caroline stroked his head. "Aunt Jenny will love it." The room phone rang, and Caroline answered. "Caroline, are you up yet?" Elizabeth's voice was already filled with tension. "We're meeting in the bridal room at 9. Is Noah's suit ready?" "No wrinkles." "Good morning, Mom," Caroline hesitated. Noah's suit was laid out, but she hadn't ironed it yet. "Of course, everything's ready." "Good. Everything must be perfect today. I've arranged a special photographer, so family photos will be taken at exactly 11 o'clock. Caroline looked at the clock. It was already past 8:30. "I understand, Mom. We'll get ready right away." After hanging up, she quickly pulled out Noah's suit. However, the hotel iron was more difficult to use than expected, and slight wrinkles remained on the pants. At 9:10, when Caroline and Noah arrived at the bridal room, Elizabeth was already waiting for them. With her perfect posture belying her 65 years and immaculately styled silver hair, she frowned immediately upon seeing her grandson's clothes. "Caroline, what is this?" Elizabeth said in a low voice. "These pants are wrinkled." "I'm sorry, Mom. The hotel iron." "I don't want excuses," Elizabeth turned to Noah. "Noah, aren't you going to greet your grandmother?" Noah stared at his feet and said in a small voice, "Good morning, Grandma." "Speak more clearly. Look me in the eye when you talk." Elizabeth's voice grew sterner. Caroline intervened. "Mom, Noah is tired from our long journey yesterday. Please be gentle with him." Elizabeth ignored her grandson and said to Caroline, "This is how I believe children should be raised. You're too indulgent. That's why Noah lacks confidence." Just then, Walter entered the room. Though once commanding, he now had a slightly stooped back. Still, he greeted his grandson with a warm smile. "Hey, Noah. Grandpa's special boy." Noah's expression brightened, and he ran over. "Grandpa." Walter lifted his grandson up and spun him around. "Excited about the wedding?" Noah nodded. He only seemed relaxed when with his grandfather. "Walter, put Noah down. You'll wrinkle his suit," Elizabeth cut in. The atmosphere froze instantly. Walter slowly lowered Noah to the floor and obeyed his wife. After that, the family was caught up in wedding preparations. The hotel ballroom was decorated lavishly, and guests began to arrive. Caroline greeted relatives while constantly checking on Noah, who looked anxious in the crowd. "What a lovely wedding," Caroline's cousin Rebecca approached. "Aunt Elizabeth has really planned everything perfectly." "Yes, Mother always does," Caroline smiled. "Noah has grown so much. Is he still uncomfortable speaking in public?" Caroline caught her breath. "He's just a bit introverted." "I see. But this must be difficult for him at such a big event." Rebecca looked at Noah sympathetically. Just before the ceremony began, Caroline called Noah to her knee. "It's okay, Noah. Just sit quietly. You don't need to say anything." Noah nodded with relief. That's when Elizabeth approached. "Caroline, I've checked the reception seating chart. I've arranged for all our relatives to sit at the main table." She looked down at Noah. "Noah, this is a very special day. Can you be a good boy for Grandma?" Noah silently nodded. Elizabeth smiled with satisfaction and left to speak with other relatives. "Mom, Grandma scares me," Noah said in a small voice. Caroline hugged her son. "It's okay. Mom and Dad will be with you the whole time." Just then, the MC's announcement echoed, "Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The wedding ceremony of Jennifer Brown and Michael Johnson will begin shortly." Caroline took Noah's hand and headed to their designated seats. The wedding was conducted in a solemn atmosphere. Jennifer, in her pure white wedding dress, exchanged vows with Michael. Caroline sat in the front row, next to her tearful parents. Walter unusually displayed his emotions, quietly wiping away tears as his daughter recited her vows. Even Elizabeth's typically stern expression had softened. After the ceremony, guests moved to the grand banquet hall. The room sparkled with crystal chandeliers and the fragrance of fresh flowers. On the pristine white tablecloths lay expensive tableware and silver cutlery chosen by Elizabeth. Caroline sat at the main table with Noah and Jason. Noah quietly looked around. He seemed nervous but was doing okay so far. "Noah, are you all right?" Caroline asked softly. Noah gave a small nod. "Yes, Mom. But when can we go home?" "Just a little longer," Caroline squeezed her son's hand. "After the meal, we can step outside for a bit." Jason gently patted his son's shoulder. "You're doing great, champ." The reception began, and the MC announced the entrance of the bride and groom. Jennifer and Michael entered hand in hand to applause. The room filled with warm applause at the sight of their happy faces. As the meal progressed, it was time for speeches. First, the groom's father stood and spoke warmly. Then Walter expressed his love for his daughter, creating a pleasant atmosphere throughout the venue. That's when it happened. Though it wasn't on the program, Elizabeth suddenly stood up and took the microphone. "Everyone, thank you for joining us today," her voice was tense. "As family, I'd like to say a few words on this special day for my beloved daughter Jennifer." Caroline felt uneasy. She hadn't heard that her mother would be giving a speech. "And on this special day," Elizabeth continued, "we'll also hear a few words from our family's future, my beloved grandson." She looked down at Noah and smiled. "Next, a speech from my darling grandson, Noah." The room fell silent. Caroline froze. She could see Noah's expression freeze with fear. "Mom?" Noah's small voice trembled. Caroline quickly stood up. "Mom, you should have told me beforehand," she said gently but firmly. "Noah isn't prepared." Elizabeth's expression changed in an instant. "What are you saying, Caroline?" she said, maintaining a smile through clenched teeth. "This is a family event. Of course Noah should participate. But Mom, Noah is." "Sit down, Caroline," Elizabeth's voice was low and intimidating. "I won't let my grandson be embarrassed." Caroline couldn't move. The obedience to her mother ingrained since childhood controlled her body. Jason stood up and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Mother-in-law, Noah is still young," he said calmly. "Forcing him to give an unprepared speech is." "Be quiet." Elizabeth suddenly raised her voice. The entire room held its breath. "This is my daughter's wedding. Everything must be perfect." She turned back to Noah and held out the microphone. "Now, Noah. Please speak for Grandma." Noah was trembling. His blue eyes widened with fear, and his lips quivered. Feeling all eyes in the room on him, he completely froze. "Noah." Elizabeth's voice grew harsher. "Everyone is waiting." Caroline came to her senses. Her lawyer's voice returned. "Mom, stop it. Noah can't do this yet." At that moment, Elizabeth's face contorted with anger. She raised her hand toward Noah and slapped his cheek hard. A sharp sound echoed through the hall. "Do as you're told." The room froze. Noah's cheek turned bright red, and tears flowed from his eyes. Caroline cried out and rushed to her son. Then something unexpected happened. Elizabeth suddenly clutched her chest, her face showing pain. The color drained from her face, and she staggered. "Elizabeth?" Walter called his wife's name with concern. Elizabeth collapsed without saying a word. Simultaneously, Michael stood up. His face was tight with anger. "I want nothing to do with a family like this." His voice was quiet but resonated throughout the room. "I cannot spend my life with people who hit children." Jennifer stood up with a shocked expression. "Michael." "I'm sorry, Jenny." Michael looked at the bride with sad eyes. "But this is something I cannot accept." He slammed his napkin on the table and left the room. Jennifer broke down crying, and her friends rushed to comfort her. Meanwhile, Caroline was embracing Noah, comforting her sobbing son. Jason was already calling an ambulance. "It's okay, baby." Caroline stroked Noah's hair. "No one will hurt you anymore." Walter was checking his wife's pulse, stunned by shock. "She still has a pulse, but she's unconscious." Minutes later, paramedics arrived and placed Elizabeth on a stretcher. Walter said he would accompany his wife to the hospital and bowed apologetically to Caroline. "I'm sorry, Caroline, that child." His words trailed off. "Go, Dad," Caroline said. "We'll follow soon." The wedding was effectively over. Guests began to leave in confusion. Jennifer continued crying, surrounded by her friends, her makeup ruined. Caroline decided to return to their room with Noah and Jason. Noah was still shaking but calming down. "Dad, is Grandma going to die?" Noah asked in a small voice. Jason looked at his son. "No, she won't die. Grandma just got sick." "But is it my fault?" "Absolutely not," Caroline said firmly. "This is not your fault. Not at all." Upon reaching the hotel room, Caroline's cell phone rang. It was the hospital. The hospital waiting room was wrapped in silence. Surrounded by white walls smelling of disinfectant, Caroline sat in a hard plastic chair, resting her head on Jason's shoulder. Noah, exhausted, slept on his father's lap. A faint red mark still remained on his cheek. Footsteps echoed from down the hall, and Caroline looked up. Jennifer was rushing toward them. She was still in her wedding dress, but the hem was dirty, and her makeup was ruined by tears. "Why?" Jennifer's voice mixed anger and sadness. "Why did this happen, Caroline?" Caroline looked at her sister with tired eyes. "Jenny, now isn't. You didn't stop her." Jennifer's voice trembled. "You spoil Noah too much. Mom is right. If Noah had just given his speech properly, Mom wouldn't have collapsed, and Michael wouldn't have." Her voice choked. "Michael left me, he won't answer my calls." Caroline stood up and tried to approach her sister. But Jennifer stepped back. "Don't touch me. My life is ruined. What should have been a perfect day, it's all ruined." "Jennifer," Jason said quietly. "Calm down. No one wanted this to happen." Just then, the examination room door opened, and a doctor emerged. Walter followed behind. He looked as if he had aged 10 years in one night. "Family members," the doctor addressed everyone. "Mrs. Brown is stable. It was a mild heart attack, but fortunately, it wasn't serious." Caroline sighed with relief. "Thank goodness." However, the doctor continued, her condition requires attention. Particularly, avoiding stress is crucial. Excessive excitement or anger increases the risk of recurrence. Walter showed a tired smile. Thank you, doctor. We'll be careful. After the doctor left, a heavy silence filled the waiting room. Jennifer sat in a distant chair, staring at her phone. She was probably waiting for contact from Michael. Everyone should return to the hotel and rest today, Walter said in a tired voice. Elizabeth can be discharged tomorrow. Dad, Caroline hesitantly asked, did you know about Mom's heart condition before? After a long silence, Walter nodded gravely. Actually, there's something I haven't told you. He sat down heavily. Elizabeth has had heart problems for 3 years. But she didn't want to worry anyone. Jennifer looked up in surprise. But why didn't you tell us? I didn't want to worry you, Jenny, Walter gave a bitter smile. Especially when you were busy with wedding preparations. He heaved a deep sigh. Actually, there's a bigger issue. Caroline and Jennifer stared at their father. Your mother, she grew up in a strict household, Walter began, choosing his words carefully. Her mother, your grandmother, was a very stern person. She demanded perfection and punished Elizabeth when she couldn't meet expectations. Caroline gasped. Dad, that's... Yes, it was abuse, Walter's voice was somber. Elizabeth never acknowledged it, but her behavior patterns stem from that past. Perfectionism, excessive expectations, and... He looked at Noah, still asleep. And sometimes difficulty controlling her emotions. Walter covered his face with his hands. I couldn't stop it. I knew about her issues from the beginning of our marriage. Jennifer was stunned. But Mom was, to me. She was kind to you. Right? Caroline said quietly. Unlike to me. Walter nodded sadly. Elizabeth saw her mother in you, Caroline. The same strength, the same intelligence, and the same defiance. But I wasn't defiant, tears welled in Caroline's eyes. I just wanted to live my own life. I know, Walter took his daughter's hand. And when Jennifer was born, Elizabeth felt she had a second chance. That's why she tried to raise Jenny differently. Jennifer began to cry quietly. She was shaken by family truths she had never known. And today, when Noah... Walter choked on his words. When Noah couldn't give his speech, Elizabeth saw her own mother. And then she did the same thing herself. I think that triggered her heart attack. A long silence followed. The three were lost in their own thoughts. I want to see Mom, Caroline suddenly said. Jason looked at his wife with surprise. Are you sure? Noah can stay. Please, Jason, Caroline placed her hand on her husband's shoulder. Just for a moment. There's something I need to say. Walter nodded and guided Caroline to the hospital room. Elizabeth lay in a white bed. Her usually perfect hairstyle was disheveled, and her makeup removed. The quiet sound of machines echoed in the room, and N4 was connected to her arm. Mom? Caroline approached cautiously. Elizabeth slowly opened her eyes. They were tired, but when she recognized Caroline, she smiled faintly. Caroline. Her voice was weak. Is Noah all right? Caroline was surprised. Her mother's first question was about her grandson's well-being. Yes, he's fine. He was frightened, but... I'm sorry, tears fell from Elizabeth's eyes. I hurt that child. Caroline took her mother's hand. Mom. No, listen, Elizabeth said feebly. I tried to be a perfect mother and ended up hurting you all. Especially you, Caroline. She breathed painfully. I didn't want to be like my mother. But before I knew it, I was doing the same things. Caroline listened silently. She was confused by this vulnerable side of her mother she had never seen before. I ruined Jennifer's wedding too. Elizabeth's voice was full of remorse. It's all my fault. Caroline took a deep breath. Usually, she would have comforted her mother. But today was different. Yes, Mom. You were wrong, she said quietly but firmly. But this is the first time you've admitted it. Elizabeth looked at her daughter in surprise. This isn't the end, Caroline continued. We're family. Let's find a way to get better together. Elizabeth nodded weakly. In her eyes floated pain hidden for years and a small light of hope. 2 weeks after Elizabeth's discharge, Caroline invited the entire family to her home. The living room, brightened by sunshine, was decorated with flowers, and the windows offered a view of Boston. Caroline checked that everything was in order, though she felt nervous. The doorbell rang, and Jason opened the door. Elizabeth and Walter entered. Elizabeth still looked a bit pale but seemed much better than when she was discharged. And surprisingly, Jennifer and Michael followed behind them. Everyone came. Caroline smiled as she welcomed her family. Noah entered the living room, looking a bit tense. When he saw his grandmother, he hesitated for a moment, but when Elizabeth smiled gently, he seemed to relax a little. I've gathered everyone here today, Caroline began quietly, so our family can take a new step forward. She called Noah to the front. Noah has something he wants to say. Noah was clutching a small piece of paper. He took a deep breath and began reading in a slightly trembling voice. I wrote a poem. It's called Family Bonds. He glanced at Caroline for a moment and, encouraged, continued. When I'm scared, when I'm sad, family is there. Sometimes we fight and hurt each other, but love never disappears. People make mistakes, but forgiveness makes us stronger. I love my family. May everyone be happy. Tears welled in Elizabeth's eyes. She slowly stood up and knelt before Noah. Noah, Grandma has started counseling. She looked straight into her grandson's eyes. Grandma hurt you. I am truly, deeply sorry. Noah looked at Elizabeth with a slightly surprised expression. Grandma, are you crying? Yes, Elizabeth didn't wipe away the tears on her cheeks. Even adults cry sometimes. Especially when they've hurt someone they care about. She handed Noah a small box. This is a token of my apology. Open it. When Noah opened the box, inside was a beautiful wooden pen. This is for writing down your feelings. When you're scared, when you're happy, anytime. Thank you, Grandma, Noah said, a bit embarrassed but clearly pleased. Caroline felt a warmth in her chest. She had never seen her mother express emotions so honestly. Jennifer quietly said, actually, we have an announcement too. Everyone looked at her. Michael took her hand. We've decided to try again, Jennifer smiled. In 6 months, we'll have a small ceremony. Just family. That's wonderful. Caroline hugged her sister. Time passed, and 6 months later, at the small wedding ceremony, Noah volunteered to give a short speech. Aunt Jenny, Uncle Michael, he began in a slightly nervous but clear voice. We all make mistakes, but we grow stronger by loving each other. Thank you for becoming part of our family. Warm applause spread through the venue. Elizabeth sat modestly, watching her grandson with pride. Caroline and Jason held hands, savoring the moment. They weren't a perfect family. They hurt each other and made mistakes. But Caroline was certain that by learning from each other, growing, and above all, loving one another, they were building true family bonds.